40% podcast. I'm 40% podcast. You know I'm 40% podcast, baby. You know I'm 40% podcast. You know I'm 40% podcast, baby. I'm only 40%. Go. 40% podcast. I'm 40% podcast.
Hello, welcome to Futurama podcast. I'm 40% podcast. Jinkx Monsoon is the host. This is episode 2 of season 2, Mars University. Mom, how was that?
Listen, Nick, you're fired from producing, you're fired from directing, you're fired from hosting. All I want from you from now on is to just watch the episodes and talk about them. Do you think you can handle that?
I just got a lot of joy out of being the producer. It would kind of give me purpose.
Really? Because you hit it very well. Now, I'm Jinkx Monsoon. That's Nick Sahoya. Today, we are reviewing... Our listeners are going to think our relationship is so toxic, and it is, but it's also really cute. Now, we're reviewing episode 2 of season 2 of Futurama today on I'm 40% podcast, and our very special guest is none other than James Adomian. Did I say that correctly? Adomian?
Yes, you did. Is it Jinkx Monsoon? I've got it right.
It's actually Munson.
Americans
Munson.
always butcher the pronunciation, but I'm going to let it pass.
And
now,
it's Nick Sahoya, of course.
Yes, you got that one right.
We're all on the same page.
make sure you pronounce that final H because he gets really bent out of shape about that final H. Now, James, is this your first time watching Futurama, or are you a Futurama fan?
No, I didn't know that you had. I assumed it was only like super fans. I would say I was a one-time Futurama super fan, and then it's kind of like, I don't know. It's kind of like you read the Bible when you're in like church and in like junior high school, and then you read it once and you're like, okay, I forgot most of it. I mean, to me, the Futurama was like the Bible, and then I've kind of like, it's been more than 10 years since I watched it, like sitting down, paying attention. And so I remember my favorite parts now.
And revisiting it, did you feel like, oh my gosh, so much of it is just ingrained in me?
Yeah, I loved it. And I think this is an episode that I had not watched a lot. I had not like gone back to watch it ever. And the Mars University. And I have it on I watched it on my DVDs from 2003, which I have.
It's a relic. A relic from a bygone era.
I've only watched them like once or something, so they're in very good condition. But yeah, I love popping them in the old Xbox, and yeah, I loved going back to it because it is like this window in time. Is this episode from 1999 or 2000?
This would have been maybe 2000, 2001, somewhere in there.
And because I don't know how many episodes were in the seasons, but it was fascinating to see, like, it holds up. It's also slightly dated.
Yeah, it's got all of that.
And it's got but it's still like adorably dated, you know? And then it's got like,
it's very funny. It's very funny for a show set in the future, for it to have so many parts that are dated.
Right. And then it's like, this is very much like, this is like an Animal House. You can almost see him being like,
Animal House parody.
We got to write an Animal House episode.
I think that speaks a lot to the writers, because I've never seen Animal House, but it is one of those things where it's like, I know all the references.
Right.
It's so much a culture we get like through approximate knowledge, or like through osmosis. Just living in America, you're inundated with certain films and certain cultural moments where you don't actually have to see the source material, but you know every joke and every reference to it.
What do they call that in like the postmodern philosophy? Is it pastiche or simulacrum or a third form of buzzword?
I don't know. I didn't go to Mars University. I didn't learn all these words.
But yeah, I learned so much even from The Simpsons as a kid about movies that I have still not seen or did not see for many years, where it's like, all
absolutely.
Like I've never seen Dirty Harry, but I've seen like all the references to Dirty Harry. I've seen the tropes and the big scene you see at the Oscars, where they'll play the "Do you feel lucky?" bunk.
Yeah.
I probably would never see Dirty Harry. Why bother?
Cab includes Dirty Harry.
There's so much culture I got strictly from The Simpsons.
Right.
And because I got it at a young age through The Simpsons, and now I've like rewatched some of it, and I'm like, oh, that's how I know the plot of Streetcar Named Desire. It's because of the episode where they do the musical performance. And so I've never seen a Streetcar Named Desire, which makes me sound like a bad theater student. But I also feel like I don't need to, because I've seen it through Marge's eyes, and I don't want to see it any other way.
That one I recommend because I went through like probably a Turner Classic Movies phase when I was in college or something. And I remember that was one that I was worth, being drunk and watching Streetcar Named Desire was definitely worth it, the movie. And
I
you
can
see
say
like
the
the
same.
old... You see like the manually operated like crane shots and stuff, and you're like, oh wow, movies used to be hard.
I can say the same for All About Eve. And I remember watching it over the span of 3 days, and it was like a come home at the end of the day, pour a glass of red wine, and watch another third of All About Eve. Those older movies, it really just feels like, I don't know. I don't want to say that filmmaking today isn't an art form, but there's something about how much technology is used in art these days, where it does kind of feel like art is becoming an algorithm. It's like, now process it through the art algorithm, and the computer will take care of the art for us,
Yeah. I think there's no way to stop that. And I'm somewhere in between like embracing it and shunning it, I suppose. I try to be like, well, if I like this particular technology and it seems fun, I'll try it. But also try to be like, well, if you're doing something that's at a cutting edge medium or something, also kind of try to have a voice in the back of your head and be like, would this be funny? Would this be funny on a Greek comedy stage where you're wearing masks? Or like, would this be funny in 100 years ago?
Yeah.
If you're just purely an analog monkey with a hat.
There we go. Tie-in back to the episode.
James, you're a very accomplished cartoon voice actor in your own right. You're on Harley Quinn currently.
Yeah.
You play a couple voices on that.
Yeah.
Are there any moments in your voice acting career where you felt like you got to be a part of something you were a fan of?
Oh God, you put me on the spot. See, here's the problem. I forget what I've done. Yes.
James works a lot.
So I'm literally pulling up my list of bio resumes.
Pulling up your own
remind
IMDb
myself
right
what
now.
I've done. Right. So I got to do a voice on the new Looney Tunes reboot on HBO.
Right.
You're
all over HBO.
I'm on 3 cartoons on HBO. I should be. I should wake up and say that as a quiet mantra. I'm on Harley Quinn, close enough in Looney Tunes. So one of my favorite cartoons on Looney Tunes growing up was the one where Bugs Bunny accidentally gets caught up in a bank robbery, and the 2 bank robbers kidnap him, and there's the gangster with the tall hat and his dumb flunky, and they kidnap Bugs Bunny at gunpoint, and it's a parody of George Raft, the old gangster actor. So it's like shut up, rabbit, and I got to play that character in the reboot, and I had auditioned for it, and I was so glad that I got it, and it was just like it was like a great honor, because I was like, I love this particular episode. I love this particular Bugs Bunny cartoon, and I love that character, and I got to play him, Shut up, shutting up. You got it. You got it. No need to tell me. Shut up, rabbit.
James, before we get into the recap of the episode, I remember one time you told me a story about meeting John DiMaggio at a house party. Do you remember this story?
Yeah, it was
Can
at
you
a bar.
give me a little version of it?
Yeah, it was at a bar, actually. M Bar used to be a place. The building still exists. It's like Vine, and it's near Vine and Melrose or something. And Vine in Santa Monica, Vine and Fountain. There used to be a lot of shows there, and then I was either seeing a show or I had a small part in some show that was there, Thrilling Adventure Hour, and I had never met John DiMaggio before. I was a fan of the show. I knew the Bender voice backwards and forwards, like, "Hey, Fry, it's me, Bender." And I'm just outside at this bar having a drink. The show's going on inside. I hear this bellowing voice from like coming out of the door of the bar, and it's doing the Orson Welles video that I know very well because I've done a parody of it, and it's John DiMaggio doing the drunk Orson Welles thing where he's like, the French champagne has always been celebrated for its excellence. And I'm like, holy fuck. I immediately was like, that's Bender. That's John DiMaggio. And he's doing Orson Welles. And I was like young and sheepish. And I was like, I'm a fan. And we started doing Orson Welles together, and back and forth. And everybody's like, nobody is as good as Maurice LaMarche. And John DiMaggio, we'd all had a few drinks. He's a huge man. He's tall and big and barrel-chested. And he's in the middle of a conversation, sees across the patio, across the parking lot, across the sidewalk, into the street on Vine Avenue. And he sees that there's a drunk driver visibly from 50 yards away, sees this guy driving too drunk, stops his conversation and goes, "Hey, you're too drunk! Pull over right now!" And it sounded just like Bender.
You kind of answered my follow-up question. I'm sorry, did I cut you off? Was there...
No, that's pretty much it. And then I was just like, I love this guy, and I just look forward to seeing him every time I get to see him.
That's an amazing story, and you kind of answered my follow-up question. I was just kind of wondering with you being a voice actor and hearing you drop into all of those voices, just like to tell your story, absolutely amazing. You do a wonderful Bender. I wasn't expecting that. And I
Bite
totally
my
get
shiny metal ass.
I totally get you being part of a Looney Tunes reboot because it seems like you study character voices to recreate them. I was going to ask, but you already answered. When someone is an iconic voice actor like John DiMaggio, and of course, people my age know him best from Futurama and Adventure Time, but he does tons of things all over the animated world. I was just wondering if it's like, do voice actors get do that voice, do that impression, in just their day-to-day conversations with human beings?
Yeah, I guess if you're known for something, and here's the crazy part is there's different pools of people that know me for different things, and I think that's true for a lot of people. So
some of them are asking you to do the voice, and some of them are asking you to get into a harness and...
Thank you. Yes, and they never seem to come to the same shows. You can be like, is this a Futurama crowd or is this a dungeon crowd?
I just have to ask before we get into the meat of today's episode, have you met Tress MacNeille? She is my goddess, and oh wow,
no,
that face.
I haven't. No, I haven't. No damn.
Anyway, someday I'll find a way to talk to her. And
you can meet Tress MacNeille if you go to a bar on Vine Avenue, and maybe she'll be drinking there.
Yeah, try if M Bar's done, try three of cups or the Floridita, El Floridita.
Are these the hangout spots for voice actors in LA?
No, I'm going by geography. They have nothing to do with each other. But most one third of all cartoons are made in Burbank, so I feel like Burbank might be a more run into a cartoon person kind of place.
My first time to Burbank was working with Cartoon Network for, it wasn't Steven Universe because I did Mighty Magiswords first, but the way I knew about Burbank was through the original Animaniacs, because that's set in Burbank, right?
Right.
Yeah. So anyway,
On the
blah,
Warner
blah,
Brothers
blah.
lot.
Blah, blah, blah. Voice actors are nerds and weirdos.
That's true. Thanks for having me on.
So, James, not your first time seeing Futurama, not your first time seeing this episode, so we're going to dive right in.
Love it.
Dive right in. Dive on in.
Dive it great.
This episode is Mars University. It's funny that the professor actually is an acting professor, and we get the explanation. It never comes up. He's running this business. He seems to always be there. And the explanation is he teaches a class that no one takes, so he never actually has to go to the university and do anything. But I love he's got the great one-liner, I can't teach, I'm a professor.
I'm a professor. You did what? He is this the I don't remember all the episodes. Is this the only episode where he actually has to go be a academic professor, or does it come back later?
No, because he's also, Amy is technically his lab assistant.
But that is on Mars University, that episode. So I think that's where he's stationed as a actual professor.
So he has this professorship at Mars University with a very light course load.
Yeah, light course load.
Like a celebrity
he has tenure.
professor.
He has
this
tenure.
This is like when I worked at Jimmy John's one shift a week so I could get food stamps.
And Amy,
did you redeem them at Jimmy John's?
Yeah. I don't think they took EBT, but
it was just one of those cyclical employee systems. So Amy is a student at Mars University, but also never has to attend classes because she's doing her we don't even get all of this in this episode, but it's all explained.
We're jumping ahead a little bit. I would like to talk about the fact that Amy's parents show up at one point and they imply that Amy only got into the school because they bought something for the school. A, that doesn't make sense because Amy is smart, but B, this is why the whole college admissions scandal was so confusing to me, because it was just a plot point in pop culture all the time. The movie Orange County, Mike White's first movie, is all about exactly what the college admissions scandal was cracking down on. So it's not that I don't think those people should go to jail. I'm just surprised that anyone ever faced any consequences for doing it.
Who were the big people that went down in that scandal? I'm forgetting.
Lori Loughlin and Lynette from Desperate Housewives.
I would love it if they had brought up Futurama as a defense. Your Honor.
If the hyper chicken was their lawyer.
The Southern chicken lawyer?
Now I'm just a simple Southern hyper chicken. So the episode is all about the professor taking his newest experiment to Mars University to present it for his eligibility for the Nobel Prize.
And they ask him, what category, Professor? It doesn't matter. They all pay the same.
We don't yet know what the experiment is, but it's some living thing in a crate. They get to Mars University. Amy is supposedly a student there, even though this is the first time that's coming up. But we do hear in the first Amy episode, someone says, wow, you're rich. And she goes, we weren't that rich. Oh yeah, what sorority did you belong to? Kappa Kappa Wong. So we know that her parents are deeply entrenched with Mars University. And later we learn that her parents own Mars. So I guess,
they own half of Mars.
Are they the presidents of Mars University?
No, they're just landowners.
I forgot that they own half of the planet Mars.
Yeah, the Western Hemisphere.
Early on, we get the explanation as to how people are living on Mars. Two really amazing lines are them talking about how Mars has been terraformed, and Leela says they planted all the traditional university plants here: ivy, hemp. And then Fry asks, so does that mean the air is safe to breathe here? And the professor says, of course. And Fry goes, Supposedly, Fry has been holding his breath the entire time that they've been walking around getting a tour of the planet.
I don't think he was holding his breath so much as he doesn't realize that he breathes.
He's already been
He
breathing.
didn't realize that he was breathing the whole time. It's such a stupid gag, and I love it.
Oh, Fry.
Was there some
about
joke
this-
too about how they terraformed Mars like they terraformed Utah, or
Yeah,
Oh,
they
yeah.
terraformed Mars just like they terraformed Utah, but eventually Mars actually became habitable.
right,
Which means Utah is uninhabitable in the future, which, good
You guys ever
riddance.
been to Utah?
Sorry to anyone listening in Utah. I
Sure
do a
I
lot of
have.
gigs in SLC.
Yep.
I've never been to Utah, but one time I was in Boise and I got on Grindr, and if you scroll down like 100 guys, you're already in Salt Lake City. It's very depressing.
My first introduction to Utah was the movie SLC Punk with Matthew Lillard. It's a good movie.
Nick, I have a stand-up bit about that right now, about being on Grindr in LA and trying to search for tops, and you scroll down once and you're in San Diego, and then you scroll down a second time and you're in Tierra del Fuego.
Someone on
funny.
Grindr said, I think the most succinct way of explaining Grindr in LA, and it's that you won't even get a reply unless you're over 6 feet and have over 6 abs. That's kind of the T in LA for Grindr. Back on Mars University, we're
Bender
introduced.
sees his robot fraternity.
Yeah.
That's where the
we've
Animal House stuff
We've got
begins.
the A plot, which is the professor and his experiment, which is a monkey wearing a scientific hat that makes him smart. Fry's joining college just so he can drop out again. That's our A plot. Our B plot is the Animal House parody with Bender and the Kappa Rho Zeta
Epsilon Rho Rho.
Epsilon
And the
Rho
joke is
Rho.
that it spells which is like, I don't know. That's like a B- Futurama joke.
So I noticed in the writing that there was some pretty hard transitions between the A plot and the B plot, and I was wondering if that was just kind of seasoned early on, or if that was like always that way, or if that's just kind of like a particularly choppy episode where there's just simply like a couple times where there's a hard cut where they're like, we were over here and just now we're over here.
There's a
good
lot of
question.
hard cuts, and also I have no idea what the passage of time is in this episode.
Yeah, how
because
long were they at the university? Because it seemed like
It's-
they were in finals at one
It's
point.
really hard to tell because when Bender goes to his fraternity, meets the other robots, they have that great bit with them doing the secret handshake, and they do this really complex, only available to robots handshake, and then the nerd robot says, close enough.
Right.
Bender finds out his fraternity is now only inhabited by robot nerds. Bender becomes determined to make the robot fraternity the cool fraternity again. And then, like, the next time we check in with the B plot, the dean is all upset with the robot fraternity because they've been pulling all these pranks. But it's like we were just introduced to the robot fraternity as being a bunch of nerds who do nothing. And then now the dean is upset with them because they're responsible for every screwy antic on campus.
It's
So
supposed to match to the Animal House reality, and there's a missing 50 pages from that like transfer.
Exactly.
So you're just supposed to be going like, okay, now they're doing the next part of Animal House.
I was disappointed that there was no Chevy Chase getting a hand job in a car. I was missing that scene.
All right. I just don't think
That's
about
the only
Chevy
part
Chase
I
that
remember
way.
of that movie.
So we know that the robot house is skating on thin ice. We got the whole Animal House parody. Back in our A plot, Gunter, the monkey, wearing a scientific hat that makes him smart, is really getting Fry's goat because Gunter is everything that Fry is not. He's charming, he's charismatic, he's super intelligent.
There's a good line there where Fry says, "Why is he so smart? Genetic engineering?" And the professor says, "Oh no, that's science fiction mumbo jumbo. His electronium hat alters his brainwaves."
And there's some line about how there's like radioactive neural intelligence or something.
Yeah, it's radiation harnessing the power of sunspots to
Yes.
simulate intelligence in the monkey. The monkey is also just a dick. He's kind
He's
of frightfully.
insufferable. Did you have lectures at your little art school, Jinkx? Because I would sit in the lecture halls at University of
didn't have a
Washington, and there
lecture
would
hall,
always
no.
be a Gunter who was raising his hand too much and being a know-it-all, and I always wanted to punch that nerd.
Yeah, Gunter's a little shit, but I mean, if there was a super intelligent monkey,
it anyway, Professor.
if there was a super intelligent monkey hitting on me in college, I probably would have gone for it. I mean, I was open to anything in those days.
You would fuck Gunter in a heartbeat.
How do you like them bananas?
That was a good scene, the Good Will Hunting parody there.
They make him a dick, like he's a smart dick, and it's like he's just an asshole in every way they can paint in like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
We
There's
did skip
this
over
one-
Fry's college
There's
dropout.
this one, there's this one
ahead.
line burned into my memory, and it's just because of the delivery of it. But Fry offers Gunter a banana, and he says, "I prefer organic banana-flavored energy bars made from tofu." And it's just the way he says tofu that line is burned into my memory for all time. But yes, go
We
on
should-
about
we should
Fry
all-
and Coney Island College.
We should all call it tofu.
Tofu.
Tofu. Fry's college dropout experience was not going to a real college. He was at a carnival in Coney Island on the pier, and there was a ride that was a college, and he didn't even get through it, is the joke.
And I love him saying, good old Coney Island, you go whitefish. The only way that joke could have been funnier is if it was silverfish, like a pest infestation.
Yeah.
I like that. Keep that.
This is a good punch-up. We should send it to Matt Groening, see if he'll go back and
Reboot the
digitally
show
alter
just
it.
to do this.
You and
Do like
James
a-
could actually do 90% of the voices if there was a Futurama reboot.
Yeah, thank you.
Is
for
it going to
that.
be or do prequels like Star Wars?
Oh, please. I would love some prequels. As long as
Future-
you talk about trade federations a lot.
We'll call it Futuronia or
Futuronias.
So we've got our two plots set up. Bender's getting the robot house into a bunch of antics. It's whatever. Fatbot eats things. Blah 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 blah. That plot is way less interesting to me. But
Well, there's the panty raid part, which made me uncomfortable. But then it paid off in kind of, because obviously that's how women were treated in cinema for a majority of the time cinema has been a thing. But
But the
I did
joke
think
is that they're treating a
they
computer
twisted
that way.
it. Yeah, they were objectifying a old Mac computer.
This is
Which
the thing about
somehow is
Animal
still-
House is that I go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just thinking it's the year 3000 whatever, and the computers are still a clunky desktop computer where you have to take off the front face and slap it.
You're a bad girl.
They didn't even bother to imagine the future in that part, which is a desktop computer.
The future aspects come and go when they're needed.
That's true. And I kind of find that endearing because it's like, that's not why you're watching the show. You're not watching the show for some kind of Isaac Asimov accurate prediction of the fate of the heat death of the universe or something like.
Well, it is funny how the future technology is so tethered to the current technology of the year that it's coming out, because all of the library is on two CDs, two CD discs, fiction and
Yes.
nonfiction.
The whole
But then you
library
get to
of
the
all
reboot when it comes
things.
back from being canceled, and it's all about iPhones and stuff.
Yep.
So they're just going through a cyclical technology cycle 1,000 years in the future that's identical to ours.
It's identical to basically 15 years in the 21st century.
The professor brings Gunter's parents to parent-teacher night, which apparently happens in college.
I thought Fry brought them. Did Fry bring the parents?
No, the professor says, because it's parent-teacher night, I've arranged a special surprise for you.
You're right. Parent-teacher night in college? What the fuck? What? That's like maybe when you graduate in May or something? Like, what?
Well, this may have been a full year at Mars University. It's very hard to tell.
Of course, it is Fry though who provokes Gunter's parents and instigates Gunter and lets Gunter's parents out of the cage that they're in so that they can wreak havoc and embarrass Gunter, and thus begins Gunter's existential crisis when he's faced with the reality of his monkey heritage, in contrast to his new super intelligence produced by
and then
an
he's
electronic hat.
Having turned down bananas, like turned his nose up at the bananas, then he's broken psychologically, and they find him just eating a pile of bananas, and you realize that he had been trying to keep up appearances.
Yeah. Of course I like bananas. I didn't know monkeys could cry. We can't. It's the hat. So the hat that is, bringing Gunter's ability to understand and contemplate his existence comes with the double-edged sword of now that he's contemplating his existence, he's questioning it. So Gunter is on an actually very intense existential journey with this hat. Fry is just starting to feel like an asshole because, Gunter's hurting.
I felt really
and he
bad
realizes,
for Gunter. And I know I called him a fucking nerd a little bit ago, but I was very sad for him.
Well, he's a dick, but we're getting to see why he's a dick. We're getting to see why he's putting up such a front and being such an asshole.
They do a hard turn on the character too, where he's like what do you call it? An alpha nerd bully, and then it's very fast turn to oh, woe is me, victim.
Well, the episode's only 22 minutes long, so they're really
all the stuff has to happen
through.
fast. Yeah, but then you're like, oh, poor Gunter. I hated you, and now I feel sorry.
It was whiplash. I felt like I was right there with him. I empathized with him. I really empathized with him when he had the panic attack in the test, because I felt that way in school many a time where I just wanted to scream and run into the jungle. But I think the funny part of that scene was he can't really focus, so he's just drawing bananas on his test, and Fry's cheating off of him and just drawing worse bananas.
And Gunter's having his, his existential breaking moment, and he's hearing jungle drums playing in his head. Is that a reference to something? Because he's trying to take the test, he's hearing the jungle drums, he's hyperventilating.
I think he's being pulled and seduced into the mystique of the jungle where he feels he belongs. The Fry copying the paper reminds me of something that I think happens earlier, where I love when Fry steps into the dumbest possible joke, and the professor goes if you two don't stop fighting, I'll have you both neutered. And Fry has smirks, and he turns the camera and he's like, that'll show him.
Fry's so dumb, so lovably dumb. Another great joke that we of course I do. Another joke that we kind of glossed past
Ryan
is
the monkey. If Jinkx went into that dorm room, she would just be in heaven.
Jesus
She'd
Christ.
Be like, there's plenty of Jinkx to go around, boys.
Then when the professor, we get a glimpse of what the professor actually teaches, and we just come in on him saying, and then by logical reason, the neutron should taste like grape. Some mathy, sciencey thing, but in the end, he's talking about what neutrons taste like. Fry busts into class and says, I'm sorry I'm late, I overslept. The professor said, till 5 p.m.
I like that joke a lot, having been there.
So much relatable college content, but now we are at the point in the episode where Gunter has escaped into the jungles of Mars, and Fry and Leela go chasing after him. Fry's beginning to empathize with Gunter, and the professor, yes. They all go, but not Bender, because he's off doing the boat race with the robot.
It's a regatta.
The regatta.
Fry has a line where he says, like, wow, the jungles on Mars look a lot like the jungles on Earth. And the professor goes, ha, jungles on Earth.
Right after that, they see a tree and they, for some reason, think Gunter might be up in there. So the professor throws like a gas grenade into the tree and like 9 other animals fall out. And Fry's like, will they be okay? And he's like, yeah, they'll wake up in a couple hours. And then as they leave, an elephant also falls out of the tree and crushes them all.
I was remembering all the gags that Futurama does where something dies or someone dies or there's just a gag about some creature dying.
Oh, there's a dead kid in the last episode.
Right, that just happens in that show, and I wonder, it certainly wasn't the first, but I remember there was like, they never really shied away from it as long as there was like a funny joke there.
Death is abundant in Futurama, but also so is resurrection. You know, it's the future. Lots of people seem to die and then come back when they need to be back.
Right.
It seems like through cloning, through future scientific stuff, no one is actually ever dead for good. Except for in the episodes where death is the main plot. Now, Fry, the professor, Leela, they end up in their pursuit of Gunter. They end up on a waterfall. They need Gunter's help. Gunter's hat has been knocked off, so now he's stupid. And they need Gunter to put the hat back on so that he'll know how to save them. But Gunter, as a monkey, can't comprehend putting on the hat. My favorite part is, of course, when he puts the banana on his butt. Or no, he puts the hat on his butt.
Well, he tries to eat the hat, and he puts the banana on his head, and then he puts the hat on his butt.
And Fry is in mortal danger, but can't help but snicker at the monkey putting the hat on his butt because Fry's Fry.
It's like a classic dumb comedy bit of you have 2 things and you need to use one of them correctly and basically go through all the possible wrong ways to do it.
It's a clown-lotsy.
It's a clown-lotsy, exactly.
Oh my god. Art school nonsense.
It is art school nonsense now, but it's basically just because it's the dumbest thing from 500 years ago. It's just because it's old. It's like how to do physical comedy bits with clowns.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I hate clowns.
It's called Commedia dell'arte.
Commedia dell'arte.
Maybe if you had paid a little more attention.
I think we could go down a rabbit hole with this, Jinkx. I think that the professor is the miser archetype, probably.
Mm-hmm. With that, Fry is Fry
Wandering
the Tartuffe?
fool.
Fry's the Tartuffe?
Too dumb to be a Tartuffe, right?
Too dumb.
Pantalone Zoidberg would be your Pantalone. Ooh.
There you go.
Finally, I debut on the Italian opera stage.
We are glossing over the Animal House subplot because it's not that interesting to us, but we should mention Snooty House, which I think is very funny. It's their rival house. We initially meet them when Bender's panty raid ladder crushes their servants' quarters. And then there's a really good line.
And you hurt our servants.
Yeah. And there's a really good line, and I used to quote this all the time when I was in middle school, where the leader of Snooty House goes, "I say, Robot House, your watercraft is as ill-designed as you yourself." And then one of them goes, "Good one, Chet."
Good one, Chet.
As the regatta comes by, Bender is like wakeboarding behind the boat. And apparently the boat's very fast, so I don't know why they're in trouble in the race. But the wave is what crashes them down onto the waterfall. I just want to get everyone up to speed, because everyone's like, how the fuck did they get on the waterfall?
Well, okay. So Bender had a part in it. Bender, yet again, putting his best friend's lives in danger.
A meets B. I know writer's theory. I just don't know fucking Commedia dell'arte nonsense.
In the end, Gunter saves them, but falls off the waterfall himself, landing on his own hat.
there's a moment where they assume he's dead, and Professor's like, oh, he's like looking down sadly. Oh no, the poor sweet monkey. Well, might as well go down and scoop him up. No sense letting him go to waste. Scoop him up. Made me laugh.
We missed a joke from earlier that's one of my favorites is the professor saying, Fry, don't you ruin this for me. I spent months slaving over a hot monkey brain.
Which is so confusing because I thought he made the hat. I thought he didn't alter the monkey.
He probably had to study the monkey brains to know how the hat was supposed to work. We don't know how many monkeys died in the process before we arrived at Gunter.
Oh, we can infer that it was many of them.
So Gunter's hat gets smashed, and now instead of making him super intelligent, it just makes him average intelligent, and that's good. This is the solution to Gunter's problems. He is now smart enough to be able to be a sentient, comprehensive monkey person, but not so smart that he's plagued with the questions of existence and the finality of life.
His super intelligence is turned down halfway, and that's the happy medium for Gunter.
Yeah. He's still much smarter than Fry.
Does the Gunter character stick around like Nibbler or something as a minor character?
He comes back one time when they go to the monkey planet.
One time in a very late episode, and that episode is not great.
I think it's pretty funny.
It's got funny moments. Okay, no, it's good.
Nothing can compare to these first 4 seasons, but I think as far as the later episodes go, that one's like a pretty good one.
It's a solid B+. Robot House ends up winning the regatta because they're robots and they can just walk on the floor of the river. So in the end, they win the regatta, which grants them immunity from probation or some shit.
Yeah.
And then arbitrarily, the Snooty House rich guys, having lost the race, are so shocked that they fall out of the boat into the river. Like, because it's like in those movies, in the Animal House and all the stupid movies like that, the rich guys always have to be like dunked in water. So nothing even happens. They just fall.
That's pretty good writing right there.
Animal House, you mean? Great writing.
The great writing is the fact that they're just standing in the boat and then just fall over out of shock.
The crusty old dean has to lead a parade in their honor.
In Robot House's honor.
And it's really funny because he's leading the parade, but he's got like a scowl on his face, but he's still like twirling a baton.
Right, he's angrily leading the parade. I was trying to remember if that was an Animal House direct reference or not. I don't remember.
Well, when they play You Make Me Want to Shout at the end, that's obviously an Animal House reference, but I don't remember there being a parade in Animal House. I watched it one time when I was a kid because my dad was like, this is the funniest movie ever. And then like halfway through it was like very inappropriate. And I think he turned
Animal
it off.
House is a dad movie. Definitely a dad movie.
But in defense of my dad, he also showed me Rocky Horror Picture Show. And then when Frankenfurter fucked Brad, he was like, okay, let's watch something else. So I think he was just bad at remembering how inappropriate movies are.
Because he watched them when he was a young adult, and then it was like, oh wow, I gotta show you these things.
My mom wouldn't let me watch Rocky Horror without her watching it with me because she wanted to put it into context for me. But I secretly
context?
I secretly watched it before we watched it together, and then when we watched it together, I had to pretend like I was surprised by everything. But yeah, it was so much tamer than the way she built it up. This is new information.
Now, Jinkx, at the time, it was considered
really risque. I understand.
It was considered normal culturally for you to open a door to some guests that you plan on murdering or eating or fucking.
That's the context you use. Now you see, there's a planet called Transylvania.
James, I'm not in the business of telling voice actors to do voices, but could you give us a little Frankenfurter?
Oh God, it's like karaoke night. I'm trying to remember. How you
James
do
is great
there?
at karaoke.
I see you've met my little candy man. No, I think I got it wrong, but you know.
No, that was great.
Candy man. He's a little brought down because, when you knocked, he thought you were a candy man.
He got a little Christopher Walken there for when you knocked.
Sometimes the parodies dip into each other.
I've had this long-standing joke with my music partner, Major Scales. We want to do something where it's Tim Curry and Alan Rickman in a windstorm, and it's just the two of them going. Just because it's windy.
Major Scales, you have been replaced.
So that's pretty much it for episode 2, Mars University. It's a good episode. The two plots do seem to be in conflict with each other until Bender. What I'll say is my favorite part of the Animal House B plot is the Dean. The Dean's written really funny, but when we first meet him, he's
Robot House!
My favorite part about being a Dean is sitting in peaceful quiet and the respect that it gains me. And then Robot House. And then, when he's saying the only thing that keeps me sane is my miniature boat collection. And then Fatbot is eating the boat.
Fatbot immediately eats it.
There's some good bits, but ultimately,
whenever
Animal
the
House
campus liquor store is rated, it's
important to
Robot
me.
House.
And then they go,
liquor store.
whenever there's human remains scattered on campus, it's Robot House. And Bender goes, I can explain that one.
The episode ends with them doing one of those freeze frame caption telling you how everything ends for everyone.
Just like
Animal
Animal House.
Are there any good bits from that? We learned that Fry successfully drops out. Even though that was like Fry's mission in the episode, we kind of just forget about it until the end.
I think the funniest of the freeze frames is Leela went on one date with the Dean, but he never called her back.
I like that Bender stole everything of value and never came back.
After helping the Robot House, he just ended up looting them.
There's something I always think that's funny in a nihilistic way, and I feel like people jaded to comedy, most of all comedians, I really think it's funny when someone's presented as a good guy and then suddenly you're like, nope, he was bad. And you just flippantly leave it there.
Nope. So, James, we ask every guest, I feel like you might almost be too into this question, but of all the Futurama characters in this episode, or since you're a fan of the show, draw from anywhere in the show.
Okay.
Who would you most want to bone? Who would you want to carry on a sexual, maybe romantic relationship with of all the Futurama characters?
I would say, honestly, there's no way around this. I would say Fry is not a good lay. Bender reminds me of a couple of bad boyfriends from the past.
Yeah.
I mean, I should go. The Fry type is the one I should go for more often, but honestly, it always end up with some kind of shitty Bender bad boy situation. So I know that territory.
I mean, I'm the most attracted to Fry, but you're absolutely right. I'm positive he's not good in bed. But then I'm trying to think of
shiny metal armpits.
I'm trying to think who of the Futurama universe would be the best in bed. I want to say the robot cop. He seems like the only good lover in the whole series.
Yeah, he's very sexual.
I feel like I present to my lovers in bed like Zap Brannigan. That's the whole act.
the undeserved bravado. But we know that Zap Brannigan's a pathetic lover as well. I don't know if I should say pathetic. Is that offensive to beta cuck soy boys?
Kif, your captain has finally mated with a woman. Inform the men. Yes,
I think
sir.
also another good lover is the Futurama's version of William Shatner, young William Shatner in one episode. He seems to be like a good lover, yeah. But
I think that's
most
only
of the
in cartoon
jokes,
form. I think real William Shatner, maybe not so much.
I mean, they also talk about Bender being a fantastic lover. I've never understood when Bender has sex with Amy, spoilers, but when Bender has sex with Amy, I don't understand what they do. I don't know what's happening in the bedroom between them.
Electrocuting her bits or something?
Electrocuting her bits.
Sending little shocks into her bits?
No, it's like, I'm sure that Bender can satisfy Amy. I don't know what Amy can do for Bender.
Why is no one fantasizing about Zoidberg?
Zoidberg.
What if Zoidberg's great and bad? Sometimes the weirdos are.
I bet Hermes is too. I mean, he landed La Barbara, and he's flexible, so...
La Barbara's got to be good and bad.
La Barbara has to be.
I guess that's the sex tape I would watch. Is those two, La Barbara and Hermes.
No, I'd wait for La Barbara and Barbados Slim to come
Barbados
out.
Slim, yeah.
How could I have forgotten what a great fuck would be with Hedonism Bot?
Hedonism Bop. And now that I'm saying it, why am I forgetting about Barbados Slim?
This is one of the toys I have.
Oh my God. Audio listeners, James has just presented a hedonism bot to us.
I have this hedonism
bot.
One. He's next to my statue of Dionysus appropriately all the time. And I love, there's one episode where they talk about how there was a mass death situation at at Hedonism Bot's birthday party, and they interview him on the news. It's like an orgy that a bunch of people died at. They interview him on the news, and he goes, there were bodies. It's the same line with different inflections where he's like, there were bodies everywhere. There were bodies everywhere.
Hedonism Bot. Why was he built? That's my only question, is what purpose was Hedonism Bot supposed to serve?
To me, that is what's so great about him. It's just absolutely pointless that he exists except for the punchline.
I like when the robots are created for no reason, because there's a one-off joke many seasons from now where you see a robot graveyard, and one of the tombstones just says "Dying Unit 44," like he was just built to perish.
Well, James, thank you so much for being our guest today. Now that you've revisited Futurama, will you be binging it again? Are you going to get back into it?
Sure. I don't really watch a lot of television. I mean, I guess around Christmas time and winter, I watch more TV when there's less shit to do. Why not? It's been I've always threatened to go back and watch Futurama. Why the fuck not? I like it.
You can take a break from rewatching Almodovar movies for a moment, and you can watch some Futurama.
I do love those. But they're, you know what I would really love? And this probably wouldn't sell out? People are starting to learn. People are like, Netflix is starting to realize, like, entities like that, like, we could show our TV shows in binge-worthy theater settings for people to come watch. Why not have midnight screenings of like 3 Futurama episodes at a time? I would love to watch it with an audience.
Yeah. I think if we ever tour this podcast, it'll be watching episodes live with an audience and pausing to talk about things.
That's a great idea.
James,
so everybody
thank you
wear
so
your
much.
masks so we can go on tour.
Yeah, please let the pandemic end. If there are any assholes listening, please stop it. James, thank you so much for being our guest today.
Thank you, Jinkx.
Follow James Adomian on all the socials.
Sahoya.
See which great cartoons he's on. He's always on great stuff.
Yeah, and thank you for bringing so much raw acting talent to our podcast today. I'm thoroughly impressed.
I learned from the best, Calculon.
Have a great rest of your day, and thank you all for listening. Be sure to listen and subscribe wherever you get your pod on, and we'll be back next Monday with more I'm 40% Podcast.
I guess that's the end of that.
Wow.